Do you like mysteries? Do you like the things that go bump in the night? Do you want to hear about historical figures like Shakespeare, Amelia Earhart, and maybe Pigman themselves? You need to check out Death by Monsters, a podcast, and you definitely don't want to check what's tapping on your window. Welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for February. Yeah. The New Year's passed. Now, sometimes at the beginning of a new year, you might decide to make new life goals. You might decide to take up new interests and hobbies in your life. For many people, it is reassessing what they are doing in their hobbies and in their pastimes just now. Some people might decide to take up a new pastime. Fitness is usually a popular thing. Some people decide to give up alcohol. Other people decide to take on not eating anything with a face, or veganism as it's also known. Other people, what they like to do is they like to take a glass tank, take wild animals that should be swimming in 42 square miles of water and condensing them into something which is only 6 foot long. But I thought, I need to speak to somebody about this. I need to speak to somebody about how you take some fish and you condense them not only to a small tank, but maybe into cardboard. I need somebody who's going to help me win. I need somebody who's going to help me smith. I need Travis and David from Winsmith Games who are going to talk me through all about 10-gallon tank. So hello, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Hey, Richard. Doing well.
I'm so glad. I'm so delighted. Do you know what I've realised? Is that you're just going to have to figure out between yourselves when you talk. We're in 3 separate areas. This is either going to work extremely well or it's going to work extremely badly. But you know what? The joy is in finding it out. So I'm looking at the campaign just now. You have got, at time of recording, you've got over 2 weeks to go. And you're pretty close to funding. So Travis, if I come to yourself, what's mood like in camp at the moment?
Oh, we are very happy. This is our first Kickstarter campaign.
Mm-hmm.
We've come a long way from when we first joined up together. And so to see it do so well in the first 2 weeks has been really, really encouraging. So we're looking forward to get to that goal and then pushing past that before the end of the campaign.
And is this the first game that you guys have worked on kind of like together then? Or
so we've worked on a couple other games, and our journey has been Dave and I have known each other since 6th grade. So we've grown up together and went to college together and live in the same area, and our families meet a lot. So Dave and I have a long history, but we started with some other games, and this is the one we've ultimately settled on as our first campaign. So we've done a couple other bigger ones, but this is the one that we feel the most confidence in getting funded, having a low risk, production and fulfillment strategy, and getting our names out there for a first campaign.
When you were growing up together then, David, did you play the Dungeons and Dragons together, or is it just that you hung around an awful lot? Do you remember the first day that you met, your 6th grade?
First day?
Snotty-nosed kid came in and you were just like that.
I was probably the snotty.
I'm going to make a board game with that boy.
I can't say I remember the first day. No, there was a group of us, probably like 5 or 6 kids. We played a lot of D&D. Mm-hmm. We played a lot of Pokemon, trading card game, Magic. Man, I even remember, Travis, in your all's backyard, we would have like the plastic lightsaber like dual fights.
Wow.
So yeah,
I don't remember any plastic lightsaber dual fights, Dave. I have my integrity to protect.
I bet you made noises, Travis. You're the type of person
you had to hum. It wasn't real if you didn't hum.
You'd have to be zoom, zoom, zoom. Who was the good guys and who's the bad guys then? Who preferred to be? Because there was the Star Wars Empire kind of jump where people moved from wanting to be kind of like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker to people kind of going, actually, Darth Vader, he's pretty badass, and that Boba Fett, he's pretty cool as well, kind of thing. So, were you the good guy or the bad guy, Travis?
Richard, you must have never played Star Wars with friends because you always fight the invisible bad guys.
I don't know. I mean, there was lots of kids at our school, and we just, we divided them up into both sides. I mean, that kind of had to be. David, is Travis lying, and was he always the person that was forced to be either C3PO or maybe, because that was it. If when you used to get the posh kids that used to come around and they used to have all the figures. Yeah. And then it was like, they would go, I'm going to be Han Solo. And then they would give their friend kind of like Luke Skywalker. And then it was like divided. Here's Darth Vader. Here's Ben Kenobi. Here's R2-D2. And at the end, kind of kids being kids, be like, you can have C3PO. And it's like, well, what does he do? And he goes, he does nothing. And you can be Princess Leia. And it's just like, I don't know how to agree with that. So is Travis blocking this out of his memory because he ended up being C3PO in this scenario?
More so R2-D2.
R2-D2 was the key character in the whole Star Wars series. Just saying.
He'd have to roll up into a ball and we just push him around.
You stick him in a trash can and just like wheeled him about. Make some noises, Travis, or we'll hit the bin again. Don't do that. That was rubbish. You get a torch, you could poke a little kind of hole in the side of the trash can and then poke a torch through and go, help me, Obi-Wan, can you be here on your hip? Kind of thing. You could do that. Obviously not in kind of like a Cartman type voice, but it kind of worked. This is obviously a friendship that's been forged in years. So did you find yourselves kind of staying within the same kind of interests as you kind of grew up? You mentioned kind of like D&D. So were you quite kind of like board gamey type, indoorsy type focused, or did you get kicked out by your parents to go play outside and stop avoiding the sunlight kind of thing?
I think it was a bit of both. I mean, it was more so I was forced and kicked outside when I was at home, with my brothers. But at our friend's house, we would do really late night video game sessions. We would play a lot of D&D, Magic the Gathering. We're super into that. And the Pokemon card game, our local like comic shop would have like gym like battles where you bring a deck and play. So it was a lot of video games and a lot of like card games.
When did you get around to talking and saying, actually, let's do something together? Or were you kind of making up? Because I know a lot of friends that like, once you get bored of making playing Pokemon, you end up kind of, I'm going to make my own Pokemon. This is Sarah Trep to Hypodon, and he's got 500 health, and he just looks at you and you get knocked out kind of thing. Did you go down that line of making up your own Pokemon then?
I was going to turn that over to Dave because Dave is the one who he would always create like back of the napkin games with him and his brothers. So Dave would always be making up all kinds of games and saying, "Or hey, we can play this game this way," or so.
Yeah. So even right now, like I'm more of the guy designing the games and doing most of the development, and Travis kind of helps and more so plays devil's advocate. But yeah, as a kid, even like when we played Magic the Gathering, honestly, my favorite thing to do was just to design decks and try and find cool combos or cards that were kind of off the beaten path, like make a deck around them, see what interesting things you could do. as Trav mentioned, me and my brothers, we designed games, we played games, made up our own like rules for like action figure wars and stuff like that. So, but there were times even, I mean, we would have like fun, like gaming sessions at like Trav's house as a kid, with lightsabers. And so we got into that some, but it was more so just like playing other games, and we would find our creative outlets within like existing game systems, like designing Pokemon decks and like testing those things out. Yeah.
So did you then continue? Did you go to college at the same place? Did you go and study the same place then? Or did you, was there any time that you weren't kind of like hanging around together then, Travis?
Not really. Like I said, we lived in the same town, went to the same school. A number of us I would say my core group of half a dozen friends are people that I met in middle school. So we've all stayed in the same general area. A few of us moved away, but we all try and get together, once or twice a year. Mm-hmm. Dave and I, though, have been pretty much in the same area together, both at college and then moving up to Northern Virginia. There's a lot of like jobs, obviously, in the DC area. Mm-hmm. We studied the same discipline, same major, but different disciplines. So Dave and I are both engineers. I studied more of the industrial, like business and finance type of engineering. Dave did more of the civil engineering. So our jobs are different, very different, but in the same sort of field.
So you would tell them how much something costs.
Absolutely.
And Dave would say, but can I not just build an extra couple of towers here? Because that would be really cool.
Exactly. And that's translated into gaming as well. When Dave says, I want to add this and this and this, I said, all right, well, that's going to cost this, this, and this.
Is that work quite well then? I mean, having that kind of ability to kind of bounce off each other when you decided, because I take there was a point when you said, actually, let's do something with this and actually start to put a game kind of together. So was it as soon as, Dave said, I'm thinking about making it, and you just went, I'm in? There was no...
Yeah, it was kind of like that. And it goes kind of back to both of us at like I said, we're in the same field, but different disciplines. We both at the same time have said, I would like to be a business owner. I'd like to start my own business. And so, but in the fields we're in, there's a lot of like defense contractors and really big firms and all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot of competition. It's really hard to get into that type of market and own your own business. It's really difficult. And so this ended up being a good medium, doing something that we both love and kind of fulfilling that dream as well. So yeah, when it was, hey, I've designed some games, maybe it's something we could publish. Of course I was like, hey, I'm in. If you need a partner, I'm in.
Yeah. And is it, Dave, do you do most of the game design, or do you kind of bring 50-50 to the table and then you tell Travis, what are you doing? You can't make that.
Yeah, that's more of how it is. I'm mostly the game designer, the game, and honestly a lot of the game development as well. But yeah, Travis, I bounce all ideas off him. I prepare a prototype. We get him to the table, and he's the one to say, this is garbage, or like, this is what I like, fix this. Or like, hey, what about, this mechanic or this one? Because we're both gamers. We both play a lot of board games. We both have a lot of board games. And so we both know games a decent amount. So like, well enough that we're both kind of vested in the hobby and, like the hobby about the same amount. But in terms of the creative design, yeah, that's mainly me. But and so he's kind of like, if I had to give us like a title or something, like I'd be more of the creative lead and he's more of the business lead.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I say, sometimes when you've got two creative leads, what I see speaking to as many kind of people doing Kickstarters as I have, that sometimes the business side of things arrives as a bit of a shock.
Right.
That then there's all of a sudden somebody's got to sit down and do the maths on how we actually ship this out to people, or how much, one of us needs to get the quotes. We both can't be working on kind of like the mechanics of the game. So having, I guess, someone like yourself, Travis, is going to be doubly helpful because I'm guessing you were already thinking, well, how do we get this down to kind of like, how do we get this down to 20 cards and still making it work instead of having the 25, which I know is going to kind of cost a little bit of money. You mentioned you play games together, so are your collections completely different from each other's, or is there a shelf where you've both got exactly the same games? You're kind of like almost psychically linked with the games that you have, and you could actually save money if you decided you didn't want separate copies.
That's actually funny because we have pretty much diametrically opposed game shelves, which is kind of funny. Right. So Dave is very into the heavier fantasy dungeon crawler type of games. The ones that, you'll sit down with a group of like 4 people or so and play, like Pandemic Legacy, those games. I have a couple of those games, but I tend to like the social deduction games, political based games where you have hidden roles and you're, in a social setting. And that just tends to be more of the groups that I get together at my house. When we do a game night, my game nights usually invite everybody, and then a number of people show up. And so we don't really have, we don't really have many options in terms of heavy games that 10 people can play. So my collection sort of steered to that, as well as, games that I know my wife would enjoy, because mostly both of us have kids. So most of the time we play with, our significant others, or, I enjoy those longer games, and I do have a couple. Twilight Struggle is probably my favorite game in the whole world, and that's like a 3 or 4 hour game. But Dave is much more into like the fantasy dungeon crawler, tower defense, that type of thing.
So you're a Gloomhaven type boy then, David?
Oh gosh, my first design was like this like crazy way too like difficult like fantasy game. And growing up, some of my favorite video games were the Final Fantasy series. So when I kind of got that game design bug, it was like, oh man, like I'm going to design the coolest, deepest, dungeon crawler with like this unfolding story, and you unlock new heroes and you get new content as the game progresses. And then I played Gloomhaven, and I was like, wow, this is way better than the game I was working on.
It's just like, guess I'll die.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, we'll just put that back in the fridge again, and then just forget that we ever kind of even had that kind of thing. But that's really difficult, because I see, again, it's like you see this, there's a similar story that comes up, which is, yes, I have got my big box game, and I am just going to go out and do it. And like Isaac Childress, that's what he did. I mean, he made Forge War, which is still a reasonably heavy, crunchy type game. And then straight afterwards, he's in kind of like making Gloomhaven. And folk are just going, you can't do that, Isaac. It's never going to work. And of course, and he's like going, yes, I can. And he obviously kind of went ahead and did. But normally, a lot of folk will say, well, I'm going to strip it back and I'm just going to do like the second or kind of third design. So how many designs did you go through before you decided to kind of settle on 10-gallon tank then?
I've got 18 designs in my on my Google Drive shelf. Wow. And they're all in some degree of prototype even. So I've got 18 designs. And let's see, Trav, that dungeon crawler is called the King's Legion. That was first. But then, I don't know, we probably went through like 7 or 8 games together before we kind of fell or started really working on 10-gallon tank at all. And it actually started as a different theme. And that one actually played for a while. And then we kind of split it up into 2 separate games. And the first game was like this Iron Chef game, like style game where you have this deck of ingredients, and ingredients are things like dairy, meat, fruits, vegetables, and you shuffle that deck of ingredients up, and then everyone has a recipe card of different recipes that are worth different points. And so the players are trying to split up these ingredients and collect ingredients and use those ingredients for recipes. and you played a number of rounds and trying to, just get the most points through recipes. But everyone kind of had similar recipes. So that was like the last game before 10-gallon tank that once we took that out and changed the mechanics a little bit, we 10-gallon tank kind of came out of that.
Was it kind of like quite, do you have to get into the mindset where you're willing to throw things away, where you're willing to actually say, no, look, we can either keep going at this and it's not going to work, or we can make a decision now and we can draw kind of like a line under it and decide that it's not going to work. And who's likely to do that? Is that yourself, Travis? Are you likely the person to step in and say, look, I hate to break it to you, but we have to move on from this design, otherwise we're not going to get anywhere?
I was going to say, I think one thing that Dave and I both share is that we aren't afraid of critical feedback. And I tend to play devil's advocate a lot about, well, why would you do this? Why would we do this? I need you to tell me like why and explain to me so it makes sense. And it would make sense from like a marketing standpoint type of thing. But we, one of the things I think that was a really good turning point for us was we actually got in contact with a game developer, a professional game developer. So of course we think we're game developers, and we, our mom and dad love the game, and our brother and sister love the game, and our friends love the game. But we got with a professional developer, and he really gave us some good feedback of, I like this game, but I think you're going to have issues producing it, or, hey, this game really just ends up, being the same type of thing turn after turn after turn. There's not a unique experience here. So I think that that was probably one of the points where we learned a lot, and saying that, okay, we need to have a professional developer, give us an opinion or do a lot more blind play testing or that sort of thing. So, I mean, I think I tend to play devil's advocate more than not, but both Dave and I look at things and are not afraid of critical feedback or just canning a game for now. We've canned a couple games to start this game.
And is this something that you are looking to aim to kind of be doing full time? Is that the kind of the longer game plan?
Full time? I don't know. That's a really tough thing. Jamie Stegmeyer obviously does it very successfully, but he's probably one of the only ones. So we both have really good jobs, but we both have a passion for gaming, and as I mentioned before, wanting to own a business. So I think, obviously the goal would be to quit your job one day and do this full time. I think at least for now, we don't want to make just one game and be done. We do want to continue, build the brand and be able to produce games, because that's what we enjoy doing. But neither of us would consider it a failure if we can't quit our normal day jobs.
Right. And to kind of go into that also too, I would say, like, I would love to, quit my day job and do like game design and publishing full time. That would be a blast. I would consider that like a pipe dream, but I really don't have that as an expectation. Like, I know how difficult that is. We consume a lot of podcasts and blogs and, talking to other folks in the industry. So we know that that's a very difficult thing to do. And I just don't have that expectation. Our expectations are just kind of much milder than that. We hope to publish some games and have fun with it. And if, the revenue from one game helps kind of support the production of another game, that would be awesome. If we can get to that point to where the games are just kind of like funding themselves and we get to be there for the ride and experience and to enjoy that. But yeah, it's just not the expectation to do it full time, but not to say that we wouldn't like that.
Well, yeah, but then, I mean, I guess on the other side of it is, if you look at it this way, if you're the type of person that's willing to get off your butt and take a risk, and not even take a risk, but actually get off and actually start doing something, 9 times out of 10, that kind of mindset is the same type of person that's usually doing kind of okay in their job.
Absolutely.
Because if you're the type of person that is kind of like saying, well, I'm just willing to go ahead and do that, or I'm willing to take a different way, or I'm being creative with this, or I am putting the hours in just to get this stuff done, then, and again, it's the type of people that I kind of speak to again and again and again, it's generally people who are quite willing to take a risk and do something. And I don't mean that in a financial risk or anything. It's just actually willing to put something out there, have other people look at it and say, "Oh, this is great," or "This is bad. You've just wasted 5 minutes of my life. I'm never going to get back by looking at this." And the thing is, so I see a lot of people who are kind of like, "Well, I'd like to give up my day job, but I'm actually, I really enjoy my job." Or I found that I'm quite good at my job because, I'm having to organize my time so I can spend 8 hours a week actually working on this thing, which means I have to have a certain kind of drive behind it. And that it's a bit of an age and a status thing. As you get older, then you're going to end up with bigger commitments. You're going to end up with whether a family, whether it be kind of other little humans that depend on you, or whether it's going to be, here's a lot of animals that depend on me, or here's a big family that kind of depends on me. And as you get older, the ability for me to, if this was like, say, 15 years ago, and if I wanted to go full-time into podcasting, I could probably have done it maybe 15, 20 years ago. But now it would take an awful lot to kind of make it work and kind of make it doing. With you guys, being involved in the design side of things, and then obviously the money and the organization side of things, what was it like kind of stepping into the marketing side of things for you? Say, Travis, what was that like, kind of doing that?
Well, one thing we kind of identified early was that we needed a social media presence. And so that was probably the biggest and best thing we could have done. So we started a Twitter account a while ago. So we've actually had Winsmith games for 3 years. And this is the first time we're actually on Kickstarter. So we've had a couple of cycles of develop a game, get good feedback. And then, at one point we got to, this game's too big to produce for our first game. Nobody knows us. It's hard to get somebody to pay $60 for a game. They know nothing about you. So that's part of that's the learning, the journey of learning of what works and what doesn't. And then, but yeah, so we built a nice following on Twitter, and we consume a lot of, other podcasts, read a lot of articles. So I think, there were still a lot of risks with the first project, but, one of the reasons we chose 10 Gallon Tank was because it is just a card game. It's something that we think will appeal to a lot of people. So we don't have to necessarily market it just to a very niche market. And then, it's something that a lot of different game groups can pick up, and something that we think we can produce without major risks of failure or delays or anything like that. So a lot of it was trying to find a game that we think we could market, and then using, Twitter and podcasts like this one to just talk and get our name out there and sort of interact with the community and give back to the community as well.
That's put me under a lot of pressure. Thank you for that. Not at all. But have you been surprised by the amount of kind of, I guess, additional work you've had to do just to get the kind of the name kind of out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. Hours of interacting on Twitter, and Dave does a lot of that stuff as well too. And then we've more recently started increasing the number of conventions that we go to, and wherever we go, we try and either, if it's a Gen Con, we do the first exposure playtest hall. So we will demo our game, and then we'll go and play other people's games and just kind of interact with those people. And we created a mailing list, and so we at least have a core group of people to market it to. But yes, it's been very hard. We've had like so much support from family, friends, coworkers. Both of us are fortunate in our day jobs to be able to kind of create like a board game group. So we do it over lunch, and to be able to connect with those people and get our name out there, that's really helped. And so then hopefully that sort of snowballs and people see it, and then they jump on the bandwagon as well. And then that helps, build our brand and our presence.
How kind of useful has the additional kind of the board game community out there that are doing the same things design wise for yourself? I mean, David, have you latched onto that at all? Have you been speaking to other people in the same situation as yourself that are maybe bringing their first or their second game to Kickstarter?
Absolutely. That's, as Trav mentioned, we did kind of start Winsmith Games a little bit more than 3 years ago now. And at that point, we decided, all right, let's get really involved with Twitter. Let's really kind of dig into the community some. And that way, just over time, we'll reach out to people, we can help support others, and we'll kind of also digest a lot of like wisdom and experience from the industry and from talking with folks. So yes, we've done Unpub like 4 years, Gen Con 4 years. Uh, Recently, I've started going to PAX Unplugged now for 2 years in a row. We have local conventions. We interact online on Twitter all the time. So yes, we've backed a lot of other Kickstarters. We make sure we're trying to like see, hey, what games are these folks doing? This is their first Kickstarter. What are they doing well? And then also, what are the things that we think we, want to learn from their experience? What do we want to do different? What do we like? What we see them doing? And so it's been a really good experience. And yeah, we're fortunate that we kind of had that mindset, years ago to really put a lot of effort into trying to be a part of the community, so that they've really been generous and supportive of us when we do our first Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's talk about the game, because we're about half an hour in. We still haven't talked about the game. David, you have 2 minutes to pitch to me what 10-gallon tank is all about.
All right. So 10-gallon tank is a family weight split and choose card game. It plays 2 to 5 players in about 15 minutes. And what the game is about, all the players are these hobby aquarists, and you are trying to have the most aesthetically pleasing aquarium. So depending on the player count, there'll be a number of rounds, and certain cards based on the player count will also go into the deck. And there are different types of fish in the game. And every round, there are 3 phases. The phases are just kind of laying out this initial grid of fish, the first school. And in most player counts, it's a 4x4 grid. The next phase, starting with the active player, all players are going to go around and divide this large school of fish into increasingly smaller groups. And then once everyone has kind of divided, this large group into different smaller groups, starting again with the active player, they're going to pick a group and add it to their hand. And then the next player is going to pick a group, and everyone's going to pick a group and add them to their hand. And so it's this split and choose card game with set collection and drafting mechanics. The different types of fish give you points in different ways. Like the angel fish gives you 9 points for every set of 3. The gourami gives you a lot of points, but he kills other fish because they're really aggressive. The neon tetras will score you a lot of points if you have a lot, but like their score really starts to go up the more you have. So that's 10-gallon tank.
Was that right, Travis? Anything you want to pick him up on at all? Anything you think he missed out on?
Actually, that was the best 2-minute pitch he's done yet. So I can't. So I think he hit pretty much everything.
I think we need to. I'm going to send you this audio, and then you can just like put it on Facebook and stuff. I think that would be the best way. I think that would be the best. There you go, Dave. You did well. Pat yourself on the back. You did a good job. I was expecting him to come in and just, say, I'm going to get you back for all these times you made me play R2-D2 in the trash can. Here we go. You're about to get it. Has it been easy to get the media people to take a look at it, Travis?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually I've been just really surprised at, again, part of it is doing a lot of that legwork and contributing to the community discussion a lot through Twitter and interacting with folks, meeting folks at Unpub and other game designers. And, but I've really been just so appreciative of how easy it's been reach out to folks on Twitter and say, hey, I know you have this blog. I know you have this podcast. Would you mind if we, just sat and talked about our game? Or do you have a topic that you'd like to, you've been burning on your list to do that we could help with about being a first-time designer, or, tips and tricks for Kickstarter? So it's been really, I feel like the gaming community is a really unique community. It's one of those ones where, you don't see a lot of cutthroat. Oh, I heard about this game, I'm going to steal it. I mean, people are very like defensive of, of everybody gets their own piece of the pie type of thing, where, people are very supportive of other people's designs, whether or not it's something that they would play. They understand that not everybody likes every type of game, but everybody should enjoy games, if that makes sense. So I've been really, really impressed and humbled by how much good feedback and warmth and welcoming we've received.
I think you don't know what the next big thing to catch fire is going to be as well.
That's part of it too, I'm sure. Mm-hmm.
I think that the reason that everybody seems to kind of gather around everybody and kind of help, and I don't think there's. I see it sometimes in some groups, which you'll get some people say, "Oh, I'm just looking to help to do this," and they go, "Oh, well, you should read this blog, or you should read that blog, and see you later," kind of thing. But there are some people who are like, "I don't know who Jamie Stegmaier is, and I don't know who James Matthew was," and there'll be people who are genuinely entering the hobby at that level and says, I'm not looking for somebody to tell me what I should have done. I'm looking for somebody to tell me what I should do just now. And the thing with Kickstarter is, it's very, very difficult to look at it, and I can't even look at a game nowadays. And I've spoken to like lots of people doing Kickstarter, but I can't still look at a game and say, right, that's going to just take off like a rocket. Because I'm always surprised by the ones that do really, really well. And I'm also always surprised by the ones I'm thinking, oh, I'm really struggling to see why that kind of didn't fund. And they all seem to kind of, but it's interesting to see kind of people pitching together just in case, because it kind of success kind of builds kind of success. I mean, what about kind of tips? I mean, if you were going back, setting the Wayback Machine to like 3 years ago, and you were doing a Back to the Future thing, I guess my first question would be, out of the two of you, who would be Doc Brown, who would be Marty McFly? And I'll let David answer that question.
I know what Travis's answer would be, and I'd actually probably agree with him. I'd be the Doctor. I'm the crazy, wacky, silly, goofy, off the wall, not always head on straight kind of person, who's more just off the cuff. Is that right, Travis?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely the more deliberate thinker. And there's strengths with that and there's weaknesses with that. And that's why I think Dave actually balances me out a lot. Dave will come up with ideas that I wouldn't think of. And then if I say, I don't know if I like that idea, Dave might challenge me on it and say, well, I think this is a good idea to do. So I think it really actually balances well. But yeah, I would agree with your assessment. You're the Doctor.
There you go. I started thinking back, we should have maybe gone the Bill and Ted route instead, but then you might just hang up on me. But if you could go back to yourselves, and if you could give your past selves one bit of advice, and it probably wouldn't be, watch out for the robots, but what one bit of advice would you future selves give past selves 3 years in the past, so that future selves knew what to do when you were making the game? David?
3 years ago or 4 years ago, the first thing I did, and the first really big mistake I did, and it wasn't like a financial mistake or anything that really was terrible, but I would spend hours like digging through like Google Images, trying to find the perfect picture for one single card of a prototype, because I just wanted it to look like it came straight out of like a published game from like Fantasy Flight or something. And oh my goodness, I spent 10s, 20, 30, 100 hours on perfecting a prototype that next week was garbage.
Okay, so don't sweat the details.
Yeah, get it to the table. Like that's my advice now to always new designers. I've been asked a handful of times, like if you had to pick like 3 pieces of advice or what's your top, advice, I'd say get it to the table, test it out. There are going to be parts of it that are garbage, and there are going to be parts of it that you'll be like, oh man, that's kind of fun, So find the fun in your game, get it to the table, and don't sweat the details.
Right, Travis. There's no pressure. I mean, that was really good advice. So all I'm saying is, this better be good advice as well. Otherwise, I might cut it out. I'm just no pressure.
So I would say, and one thing we learned, we actually kind of learned it relatively early on, maybe after the first year or so, where we were just storming back and forth of how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? Which game are we going to do? I mentioned it before, was to get a game developer. I wouldn't say you have to have it for every project, but find somebody who maybe if you heard about them on podcasts or something, you could reach out to, because you can fall into a trap of you liking your game and your best friend liking your game and your family liking your game. But all those people are invested in your success. You need to find somebody who is not invested, who would like to see you succeed, especially if they work with you, but who is not invested in your success. If you fall off a cliff tomorrow, they won't really care. But who can provide you some really good feedback. And that's really what killed our first game that we had. And he was just like, this game is just, it derives down to the same types of things. There's no unique experiences in this game. I know you think the game is unique because you've never seen this game before, but it boils down to the same exact mechanics, turn after turn after turn. And oh, by the way, you have a lot of complicated pieces and stuff that you're not going to be able to produce cheaply. And so I would say getting a game developer would be, for at least for your first couple projects, so you know which questions to ask yourself. That was invaluable to us.
Right. And actually to speak on that, to kind of pat ourselves on the back too, is that we had to choose to do that. Like we both thought the game was good, but we made the conscious decision of like, all right, we can't just get a professional developer to just look at our game for free and give us, spend, a few hours of his time to, give us thoughtful feedback. We had to pay for it. And so like, that's another advice that we give to people is like, if you really want to take this seriously, one, you need to know your own limitations. And so pay, a little bit of, it wasn't that big of a financial thing. I didn't dip into my, retirement fund, but I did, we did put some money into like hiring someone to kind of validate. And in this case, they didn't validate our game was good. They gave us, the feedback we needed to hear, but that was really invaluable for us.
Have you been surprised by the amount of money you've maybe had to invest into the game to get it where it is? I mean, Kickstarter being traditionally years ago about being an idea. Have you had to put in more money than you thought you were going to put in? I'm going to ask Travis that because obviously he's the money man.
Yeah, and I would say more money than we thought. I mean, we've kind of kept up with what it generally takes, but the bar on Kickstarter is so high because the market is becoming saturated with a lot of games. So if you don't have a professional looking video and professional graphics and professional and really good finished art, you're going to be at a severe disadvantage. And so understanding that, again, and one thing that's nice about having a partnership is that Dave and I both didn't have to take on the full financial hit ourselves. And we're also, this is a passion and it's a hobby that we're hopefully going to turn into something more. But this is almost like taking money to a casino. If we lose it, it's gone. It's not something that we need to pay any bills. So we were both okay understanding that we were going to have to, bring money to the table in hopes that maybe our first Kickstarter campaign, we don't even make any money. But having a successful project and building a brand was really important to us. Because again, it's not something that we want to do just one time and be done with it. And we actually talked a lot about, should we just pitch our games to publishers, which would really just be Dave pitching his game to publishers. But, and we just decided, no, that doesn't really scratch the itch of owning a business and being successful. So we both went into it knowing we were going to have to put some money into it.
That's fair enough. And speaking of putting money into it, how much money do you have to put into it in order to pledge?
So the base game is $15 plus shipping based on your region. So hopefully a nice entry level, pledge level. We also have a pledge level that is, we've actually partnered with Board Game Booster Box and Tabletop Tycoon. So if you want to buy one and donate a copy, we have a tier for that. That'll be donated to Toys for Tots after the campaign. And then we have a couple of different add-ons, like some sleeves that you can add on that have some of the game art on it. But the base pledge is $15.
That's nothing.
Thank you. Can you say that louder and repeat it?
That's absolutely nothing. That is I know it is actually money, and $15 is a lot of money. But considering where Kickstarter is, right? Okay, Kickstarter's here. Okay, your pledge is over here somewhere. It's kind of like going, hi. You can either get us, or you can get a takeaway meal. You could skip going to Wendy's. I heard their food's not very good anyway. Or you can take home a lovely aquarium game. See, that's kind of where it is. That's what I'm kind of thinking. That's kind of like, I'm just going to do that. Isn't it? Kind of thing.
That's where we want to be.
I'm just going to jump in. I just want some fish. The fish are nice. Let's have some fish. You always wanted an aquarium, didn't you, Martha? Yeah, I did. Kind of thing. So there you go. That sounds pretty cool. I like that. That is incredible. I'm quite surprised. I was expecting 45.
Oh no!
I'll be honest. I wasn't expecting that at all because obviously I do vast amounts of research before I get people on the show. So I was just acting surprised and just doing my good acting thing.
Maybe if we have the deluxe miniatures edition, there'll be that. But
there'll be somebody out there that's currently trying to figure out how much it's going to cost to send live fish to people.
That was a tier we had talked about. That would be the biggest tier. We'll send you a live fish somehow.
Or you get, I don't know if you've got these in the States. Do you remember the fortune-telling fish?
Fortune? Doesn't ring the bell.
Fortune-telling fish, which you're going to have to look this up. But it was basically, it used to get them in crackers, Christmas crackers at Christmas time. You don't know what a Christmas cracker is. You pull it and it makes a bang and you get a little toy in it. No?
No, I have seen those. I know
you have seen those, right? Yep. But sometimes, over here, you used to get a fortune-telling fish, and it was a fish made out of cellophane. Google it. You have to Google it now.
I'm googling it right now. Wow,
fortune-telling fish, and it was a cellophane. It was a piece of cellophane that was in the shape of a fish, and depending on how the fish curled up, it told you if your fortune.
Oh, that's so cool.
Moving head, jealousy. Moving tail, indifference. Moving head and tail, in love.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
That's a stretch goal for you.
We'll send you a fortune-telling fish.
We'll send you a fortune-telling fish. That is a stretch goal.
I'll tell you what, let's put that at 100,000 stretch goal. If we get to 100,000, everybody will get a fortune-telling fish.
I think you could put it a lot cheaper than that. I think if you get round about, say, let's see, that's a 22,000 stretch goal.
Right.
I'm looking at where you are. You're. In fact, I would say 17. UV spotlighting on the game. It's fine. It looks shiny, but it's going to be on a shelf covered with other game boxes. I mean, is anybody actually going to look at a UV spotting? I think 17 is a nice place for the fortune-telling fish. And you know what? My uncle, he owns a fortune-telling fish factory, so I can do it.
You can get us a guy.
I can get you that. I mean, he has a sales rep in the States, and the States isn't that big, and he can be over and he can be running some figures with you, sometime. Let's look at it that way. If people, I don't know where I went with that, probably to the hospital. If people have listened along tonight and they want to find you guys on the internet webs, where can we find you on the internet webs, Dave?
We are at the website, winsmithgames.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there you can, right now it's just a landing page where you can sign up for our newsletter. We do send a newsletter just the first week of every month, once a month.
Okay. Anywhere else, Travis?
And then definitely, if you want to talk to us at all, we're very open on Twitter at Winsmith Games. So we are very active on Twitter and would love to interact with more people. So anybody who has a question about the game or anything like that. And then obviously, if you go to Kickstarter, you can find us under 10 Gallon Tank, or we have a link on the website as well if you want to actually check out the campaign.
And we'll put the links in the show notes so that we've got notes to show as well.
Great.
That's just what we will do. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to and on the internet webs, go to the internet webs and search for We're Not Wizards, and you'll find us in all the different worn out places, in faces, in cases. And you can find us on all, we've got our blog and we've got our Twitter and we've got our Instagram, we've got our Facebook, and you can find us on all the podcast catchers of choice and things like Spotify, because we're amazing. If you like what you've listened to tonight, go to Apple Podcasts and consider giving us a rating or a review. If you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, do not give us 10 stars because it makes us big-headed. Don't give us 1 because it makes us cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5. Because we've been doing this almost 4 years now. So it'd be nice for a couple more people to give us a 5 because we are just a little bit average. But the people who have not been average, I give you he's lean, he's serene, and he can go through a tank like nobody's business. It's Mr. Travis Winstead. Thank you, Travis. And and he's never ever going to clog up your filter. I give you Mr. David Smith.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard.
There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, gentlemen?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Travis. Say goodbye, Travis.
Sayonara. See you on the interwebs.
And it's a goodbye from David. Say goodbye, David.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, make something awful, and just get yourself a 10-gallon tank. Just do it. And but until the next time, what do you call a fish with no eyes? A fish.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.